Welcome to the Freedom or Bust podcast with Joeel and Natalie Rivera. You are here because you will accept nothing less than the freedom to determine your destiny, do what you love, and fulfill your life's purpose. We believe that self-employment is the ultimate form of empowerment, and our mission is to bring you guests whose powerful entrepreneurship stories and real-world advice will give you the inspiration and tools to create a business and life that you love. Today's guest is Rena Greenberg of Easy Willpower. At the age of 26, Rena found herself in a hospital facing death. The story, which we'll let her tell you, culminated in her having a permanent pacemaker implanted into her heart. This life-changing experience pushed her to go from living a self-destructive 24-hour on-the-go college student in Manhattan lifestyle to a life of eating healthy, balance, and meditation. The transformation she experienced, including facing the mental and emotional pain underneath it all, quitting smoking, and losing weight, drew her to get her degree in biopsychology and become a hypnotherapist so she could help others be relieved of their suffering through the power of the subconscious mind. In 1990, she started Wellness Seminars, Inc., which has brought smoking cessation and weight control programs to over 100,000 people and has been reviewed and sponsored in 75 hospitals and over 100 major corporations, including Walt Disney World, AT&T, and Home Depot. Since then, Rena has become famous for her success with weight loss hypnosis and specifically gastric bypass hypnosis, which has been featured in 150 news stories including USA Today, Women's World Magazine, The Doctor Show, CNN, Fox TV, Good Morning America, and ABC TV Nightline, and her own show on PBS. She has also written 2 books, The Right Weight, which was published by Hay House, and The Craving Cure, published by McGraw-Hill, and created a wildly popular weight loss product called Slender Cider. Her company, Easy Willpower, has been going through exciting changes recently, including offering some new programs, which Rena will tell us more about later. We're excited to be welcoming Rena to the show today because we believe strongly in the power of her story of turning the curse in her life into a blessing that has allowed her to help hundreds of thousands of people. We've known Rena for almost a decade now, as she's been one of our regular contributing authors for Transformation Coaching magazine since it began in 2010. We know you'll love her bubbly personality and authenticity as much as we do, and that her story of entrepreneurship will help you see that each of us has a unique way that we can make a difference in the world.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Well, you are very welcome. Thank you for being deserving of so many wonderful things to say. And so we've set you up a little bit and told people a little bit about your story of what you got on, like how you got on this path of where you are today. And so we want you just to tell us a little bit more about how this experience with your heart when you were younger eventually led you to where you are now, and specifically how it led you to deciding to go independent and become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, great question. I don't know if I ever actually made that decision. It just sort of felt like, everything opened, and I feel it was just sort of following just sort of the natural course of things. So prior to getting sick, I was living this fast-paced New York lifestyle, and I had lots of fun jobs and travel and entertainment, and it's just being young and in New York was a lot of fun. And then all of a sudden, I just lost all my energy. And I didn't know what was going on. It was really scary. So I think most people who get sick, you start going to doctors. And it was that whole, the route, the doctor. And of course, no one found anything. So I thought, well, I just have to go on. And right about that time, someone just sort of in passing said, why don't, your heart rate seems to feel, someone took my pulse actually, your heart rate feels kind of low. Why don't you check it out? So I walked to the ER at Brooklyn's Methodist Hospital, and I was so amazed when they rushed me in and they said, we have to admit you. And they told me my heart rate was beating at only 30 beats per minute.
Wow.
And yeah, and I said, well, you can't admit me, I'm really busy. And and I remember this lovely doctor, he leaned in, he said, the only thing keeping you alive is your age. And I had, just turned 26. And then they put me in cardiac care for 3 weeks. And they put the permanent pacemaker in my heart after 3 weeks of being there. And I actually had a heart attack in the hospital. So I started to realize, all of a sudden, I realized that I was this close to death. I mean, this was serious, something that I had never even thought could have been a possibility. So when I got out of the hospital after 3 weeks, I was so grateful. I said, oh my gosh, I had been given my life back. And I knew I had to start over again. Now, because this was a while back, there wasn't that much information out there about the link between nutrition and lifestyle and health. But it's about listening to that inner voice, which I think is the message that we kind of all, really understand now. And so back then, it was my inner voice was saying to me that there is a link, that I just can't go back to life as it was. Even though I had been happy in that life and everything seemed fine, I was no longer that person. And that's sometimes the blessing of going through a difficult situation, and you realize that you've grown so much from it, even though it wasn't what you would have asked for. So it was all about finding health at that point. And I just studied everything, nutrition, herbs. But when I stumbled upon, and I wasn't looking for it, again, someone had suggested to me, try biofeedback therapy. I didn't know what it was. Well, when I did it, I realized it was all about awakening to the power of the mind. Because biofeedback machines, even though you get all hooked up and it looks really medical, they don't do anything. They're just like mirrors. They read back to you what's going on in your body, your blood pressure, your heart rate, your skin temperature. And through learning what they didn't call self-hypnosis, but in my words, self-hypnosis techniques, I saw, wow, I'm able to raise my skin temperature in my fingers, which means that the blood vessels are dilating. It's changing from going from the sympathetic nervous system to the more relaxed parasympathetic nervous system, and realizing having that control, the power of the mind actually changing what's going on in the body. So once I discovered that, that was it for me. And I just began this whole long career of studying everything I could, the power of the mind, and then it went into the power of the spirit to make the changes we want to make.
That's so powerful, because that is really the core of everything that we teach and what we do, is that letting people know that we have so much more power in our lives than we give each other credit for, or that our society even allows us to talk about. And so to have that awareness at a young age is such a blessing.
And for me, I really resonate with your story and everything that you've done and accomplished. And because, for example, when I was sick, I was living the same lifestyle where I was like up and going and doing 20 million things and always busy, living that lifestyle. And all of a sudden, I was bedridden, found myself bedridden for over a year. I thought I was going to die. My body was shutting down. And just being able to really then connect and study more of my mind, just laying there. I had nothing else to do. So I was just listening to audiobooks and take courses online and just really notice how much power I had in my mind, even though my body was doing its own thing. Yeah. That there was one thing that I can control. And even with my blood pressure, I would go to the hospital and it would be skyrocketing. And all of a sudden I would be able to tell her, okay, hold on. I need to just center myself again. And I could actually influence it and change my blood pressure just by recentering myself and putting myself in that right state, in a couple minutes. So, I really love your story, because you're a perfect example what you can do once you truly understand the power that you have in your mind to take back control of your life. So
exactly. Yeah. And it's really just surrendering to it and following it. So it's not about not doing things in the physical world. Obviously, we live in the physical world, and that's where we need to take action. But when the inspiration comes from the spirit or that deeper power in the subconscious mind, then you're no longer just spinning your wheels. Your actions are actually leading to a much more fulfilling place.
Yes. And really one of the biggest questions I have, so how did that transition from obviously you being in this state and learning all this information to getting to the point that you said, this is something that's possible, something that I might be able to do as a career to really help others in their journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. But again, I'm not sure if I would have even, I'm not sure there was ever a time when I said, this is what I want to do for a career. It was more like once I found health and I discovered all these exciting things about, how to really shift your mind body, I knew that I had to share it with others. It became my driver. And so there was nothing that could get in the way. And back then I lived in Brooklyn. I had, my little apartment there. And within, I'd say a few months, I got as healthy as, much healthier than I had been. And I realized, okay, I was going to become nationally board certified as a biofeedback therapist. And that took me a couple of years. But even while I was doing it, I set up internships with some of the top biofeedback therapists in the New York area. And that was an amazing experience. And then I actually went and whatever I had, I went and purchased my first biofeedback equipment. And I went to a local hospital there and I started doing biofeedback therapy there. And then I called some of the doctors in New York City and found a cardiologist's office. And I was able to start offering biofeedback therapy to her patients. And was doing all this, starting out really on an internship basis. But it was because of this passion that I wanted to share. So within a couple of months, the hospital where I had offered my services, they wanted to hire me. And then things just sort of snowballed from there.
I love that because we always talk about the process of evolving into an entrepreneur. And so many times it is that something happens to us that triggers a curiosity and that we just follow that inspiration. And I love that you did it so grassroots. It was just like, okay, I'm just going to walk into a hospital and talk about what I'm passionate about and just trust that doors will open where they need to. And I'm following, what I feel like my purpose at this moment is. And that's such a big lesson for a lot of people. I think a lot of people overthink it. And we try to tell them that, deep down they know what they want to do. And sometimes maybe they're shutting it out because they're thinking it's supposed to be more concrete. And in your situation, like you're saying, it's like, it wasn't like I had this is what I need to do and had these long-term plans. You just knew what you felt you needed to do in that moment to honor yourself. And that's a really great lesson.
And I love the fact that we talk about this a lot, where it's not just, I need to do this, it's a must. Just like you said, it's something that I had to do. Yeah. And your willingness to commit to it, because at that point, obviously it had transformed your life, and your perspective is, how can I transform the life of other people? So how did it transition from there as far as for you to actually develop, I guess, not only a lifestyle, but be able to have a foundation and be able to have a career, you would say.
Like an income.
Income from
next
it.
Step.
Yeah. Well, it is amazing how all the doors open. So it was through that experience of doing biofeedback therapy in this cardiologist's office. And I will say that situation really wasn't long-term. And I'm not saying it was the best situation, but something amazing came out of it. And that was one day when I went to the office of this medical doctor, when actually what happened was we were locked out of her Brooklyn. She had a couple of offices in Manhattan and Brooklyn. So I went to the Brooklyn office, and my patient, who I was going to do the biofeedback with, came, and we were both locked out waiting for her. So we're talking, and she said to me, yeah. And she told me she said, what do you think? I'm going to do hypnosis to quit smoking. And I really, because no one in the biofeedback world ever said the word hypnosis, I never even made the bridge myself up until that point. So I said, I think it's a great idea. Go ahead, So she went to this program, and then she came back and told me that she had gone and that she quit and that she really liked it, and they had given her a tape. So and she brought it for me to listen to. And I immediately, when I heard what they were doing, they quit smoking with the hypnosis, I thought, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. And I called the owner of the company. And I said to him, again, I said, I want to work for you. and he just said, okay. But he said, he got a lot of phone calls from different people. So he said, okay, I'm going to give you something to learn. I met with him, and he gave me a script. And for 2 weeks, I studied it day and night. And when I came back and met him 2 weeks later, he couldn't believe it. He said, that no one had really ever learned it that well. But I was, again, it just clicked. And I knew this was something I wanted to do. So he hired me to work for him. And what he did was he did seminars for corporations in New York. So that was my first experience with seminars and groups and doing hypnosis. And I loved it. I loved the power and the energy of the group. And what I loved was how many people quit smoking. A lot of people, so if there was a group of 100 people, 85% of them would walk out of the room and stop smoking. And that was very, very exciting. So I worked for him for a period of time. And then I had met my husband to be, who I didn't know, but we wanted that he would be my husband, but we wanted to be together. And he suggested, let's move to Florida. And I thought, okay. And I started, when I got to Florida, I thought, well, this would be an amazing type of program to offer in hospitals. And I just started cold calling. I remember actually going into phone booths, remember? Do you remember? And calling, in Florida just to see if there would be an interest. It's about kind of offering a wellness program with hypnosis. And the timing was just perfect because at that point, the hospitals really did not have a lot of wellness programs. And especially for stop smoking, they didn't really have much at all. They just had a 10-week kind of program from the Lung Association. And unfortunately, those programs had high dropout rates because people didn't commit to the 10 weeks. So they didn't have anything what I was proposing, which would be a one session, quit smoking. So I basically got into one hospital. We moved to Florida. And then from there, one after the other, I ended up getting into 75 hospitals over time. And the program just took off. It was unbelievable because, people were coming, filling the rooms, 40, 50, 60, sometimes 100 people or more. And that's when I started getting all this press coverage because it was such a unique program, hypnosis in hospitals. And all the major papers came and covered it, and a lot of the news networks. So it was really amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun, and also I love that it's a story both of following the synchronicity and allowing even things like getting locked out of the office to turn into something great instead of it being just an annoyance. Like you were open to finding the path from there, but then also that you have the grit to do what needs to be done and make those cold calls and follow through. So it's like that perfect balance because we work with a lot of heart-centered entrepreneurs, and a lot of people do come from a more spiritual perspective, and they love the idea of the synchronicity, but then a lot of people, they kind of fall off the wagon when it comes to actually doing the work. So you're like the perfect balance of taking the signs where they come, but then actually, like putting your feet on the ground and picking up the phone call, even if it's in, a phone booth to make it happen.
One of the questions I have with that, because I love your grit, your ability to really have someone tell you something and say, hey, that sounds great. I'll follow that. I'll get more information on that, and being able to call and say, I want to be part of that. How can I join that? And actually following through, studying the information. And so do you think that's something that you develop because of your passion and feeling like you're on purpose? Or is that something that you had beforehand, before you got sick, as far as being that outgoing person that just had tenacity. That follow through and tenacity?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will say that I feel like even as a child, and I don't know where it came from, but I feel like I've always had a lot of faith and that desire. And, it's interesting to try and articulate it because I never did at the time. It just felt like something where I would follow. Some people now in the spiritual world will say, follow the light. And I guess it's kind of what it is. It's really taking the next step and not worrying that you don't see. It's like walking through the fog. You may not see your final destination, but it's there. And it's not always a straight line. And sometimes there are things that don't work out or mistakes. And I guess it's being willing to sometimes be wrong, sometimes have it not work out, sometimes feel feelings that you don't want to feel. But to know that's okay. It's sort of being guided by this greater vision for your life. So I would say in different ways, it's not that I always knew what the vision was, but I feel like if there was just one step to take. So for example, even I remember in high school, I really wasn't thinking I was college bound at all. And then one day and I didn't go to a very good high school. There wasn't a lot of intellectual. Anyway, it wasn't the best high school, I'll just say that. So I remember sitting in art class and we weren't doing anything or learning anything, which was a typical day. And there was a big box of catalogs for colleges. I just started flipping through. And I didn't think I was college bound. And I found one catalog for a school called Fashion Institute of Technology, FIT. It was in New York City. And I just started thumbing through it. And immediately I just had this feeling that this is where I belong. Not because I was interested in fashion, but when I read about it, it was in New York City and all the teachers were from the industry, from the field. And it was just a 2-year program where you were likely to get some kind of high-powered job in New York in advertising, public relations, or fashion industry. But from that moment of reading that catalog, I knew that was the only school I wanted to go to. And my guidance counselor, I went to her and she said, no one from Franklin High School ever got into FIT. And I was like, I didn't let it stop me. And I remember then what I did was I entered these art, because again, academically, I wasn't the greatest at the time. Later, when I wanted to be in college and I wanted to study, things got better. But so I remember I entered these art contests, and one art contest I entered and I won. And the prize was that I got to paint a mural in an elementary school. That was my prize.
That's awesome.
But I did it. I went back every Thursday and I painted this entire cartoon mural on the wall. And what it did for me was then we took pictures of it, and that's what I put in my portfolio to get into the Fashion Institute of Technology. I didn't know those pieces would all come together. So I think it really does boil down to following the passion, because I loved art. And that's how I got into FIT, was with the art portfolio, ultimately. So I think your question might be deeper is, when you're stuck and you don't see where things are going to lead, just follow the next thing that feels right. Because it will lead somewhere, even if you have no idea what, and even if it's 3 years later.
Well, I love that. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, and it's about that. Even when you can't see it, your path is lighting up right beneath your feet. And I really think that your story captures that. And again, it does take a tremendous willingness to trust that. And so that's a big blessing. But you also did mention that, there are times when things don't work out, or you can't see how it'll all fit together. And so have you had any times where you've had big challenges, or whether it's actually something that happened, or even maybe like a limiting belief or something that held you back at some point? And what was it like to get past that, especially from the perspective of being an entrepreneur? Because we know sometimes financially, sometimes it rains, sometimes it pours, sometimes it's dry. We know that that's always part of the story. So if you have anything that stands out, especially if you think it contains something that you really learned that then you used the rest of the time going forward in your experience.
Yeah, well, there's quite a few. I mean, even with health, I was younger. I guess I didn't really honor or realize the sensitivity of my own body, and realizing, so often, and I see this even with my clients, the tendency, and certainly with myself, the tendency to look at what other people are doing and saying, well, everybody's doing this, it can't be a big deal. So it took me a while to realize, when I got sick, and to make the decision that I'm someone who can't drink. I'm someone who can't do any substances. I'm someone that really can't eat sugar or drink coffee. And that's just the way it is. And I don't have to feel sorry for myself, but realize it's a blessing that I get to not do these things, because I can be so much healthier and more productive and happier in the world. But again, that wasn't a one day. I mean, I think I had to come to that conclusion over probably at least 7 years, early on. And, quitting one thing and then instead of saying, wow, I already quit this thing, why do I have to quit this other thing? Well, it's all one thing. I got to get rid of all of it in order to be who I want to be, where I'm supposed to be. So I think that doing that and allowing yourself to evolve into who you're becoming, sometimes it takes time and patience and having compassion for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love the way that you reframe situations. How you're able to change the perspective. Okay, I can't do this, but instead of looking at it from a negative perspective, which a lot of people do, is seeing what blessings or what positive things you can get out of it. Even going back to being locked out, is being able to look at the situation and get the opportunities that you can from that situation to help you move forward. And as far as for entrepreneurs, obviously, we always face challenges. We always face different things as far as running our business, tedious things that we might not want to do at that point, but have to get done.
Yeah.
What are some of the hardest parts that you found being self-employed?
Oh, yeah, it's true. Well, I think just also the changes that are happening in the world and the changes, if you want to evolve in your business. I have told you, so when I started out, I was doing these seminars in hospitals. Absolutely loved it. But it was really pretty easy because once I got into the hospitals, which because I was in so many hospitals, more and more hospitals wanted to take advantage of my wellness program. So then it was, advertising was, you'd advertise in the newspaper and fill a room full of people. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. So for many of us, making the whole transition into online marketing, into online reaching out to people, and there's a lot of wonderful blessings in that. There's a lot of new opportunities, but there is a learning curve on it. And everything you do doesn't always work. And then some things work amazingly. So it's being willing to learn and to keep going. And I think you're right. I mean, there's a lot of things when you have your own business that maybe some of those things are tedious, but I think when you're always looking at the end goal, the goal to reach people, to touch people's lives, to make a difference. And that's one of the things I love about self-hypnosis, what I teach others, but also with myself, is always kind of running that program and being aware of what self-hypnosis really means to me is what are the mental movies running through your mind, my mind, so that, are these movies leading me to where I want to be. So if the movie running through your mind when you wake up in the morning is like, oh my God, I've got to enter 500 names onto this database and, whatever, then it's kind of like you get this sort of heavy, tired feeling. But instead, if you imagine what the end goal is, wow, I'm going to have this webinar and I have 500 people I get to invite. I can't wait to get their names in this database, and if it works out to hire some help, then you can do that. Or if not, make it as fun as possible. Put some music on and just, get through it. But I think all of life, I think if we're trying to escape pain, a lot of times we end up with more pain, but rather than if we're willing to do what it takes to achieve what's going to bring us much more, not just pleasure in the moment, but really fulfillment, a deeper fulfillment.
So I love that. And one of the things that I keep thinking about is obviously you're willing to make those phone calls, whether it's you're willing to do those little things to actually push you forward. And for example, when we started the magazine, I think we reached out to like 600 different companies in the first month, either by phone, email, or just walking in and say, hey, hello, we have this vision. Do you want to be a part of it?
Wow.
How do you deal with that rejection or that fear or that procrastination that comes about, that's created because of that fear of being able to put that foot forward?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things, and it's a bit of a cliche, but it really, really holds true, is not to take things personally. Mm-hmm. And to also know that, if people have a lot going on, everyone does, so sometimes if you don't get the feedback that you'd like from a person, I think also realizing that, who knows what's going on for them. So sometimes I'll tell myself, if I don't get, or I remember telling my kids when they would say, oh, this person spoke to me in such a rude way. I said, well, did you know that this morning his wife left him? He found out his oldest child has an incurable disease. The stock he invested in went belly up, and all these things happened to that person before he encountered you, and they'll laugh. But sometimes that's what happens, so we really can't take it personally. And also, I think sometimes when you're calling on people like that, which does take a lot of courage, sometimes the timing isn't right. So if the person isn't open and receptive to what you're offering right then, I would, in my case, thank them for their time and say, may I contact you again in a month or 3 months or 6 months? And I'd put it on my little calendar. And I was amazed how many people you can stay in touch with that way. And over time, the situation evolves or changes, or something new comes in that's much more of a fit for you and whoever this new acquaintance or friend is.
Well, and I love that what you're really showing here is that it's not that you love doing all these tedious things and calling and being rejected and entering names in, but that you're applying what you've learned through your studies and what you teach, that you can change your perspective and your attitude and your intention for an experience, and you can make it as good as possible. And that it's not about avoiding the things you don't like, it's about making the best of them. Because really, as entrepreneurs, we all have to do, especially when you're first starting, that you're wearing all the hats. And I think that a lot of people that maybe they want to be an entrepreneur, want something that, you know, scares them away from it, is all of these little mundane details that they are like, oh, I don't want to have to do that. But you know, what you're showing here is it's worth it. And it's about, you know, not only putting yourself in a good mood in the moment, but also remembering why you're doing it. And I think that it's really interesting to see how someone can see a vision of yourself, because obviously in the beginning you're just following it, but you're seeing a vision of something greater. And I know you mentioned, obviously, with these wellness seminars, it was just flowing, it was working. And so, you know, the analogy we use, it's like when you find a vein of gold, you just keep digging. But then at some point, that vein runs out. And so things change, something different happens. So at what point, or what did you do when that next phase was needed, when maybe that the seminars weren't working in the same capacity? Like, what was the next thing that you saw that you wanted to do?
And the one thing I want to say about that too, because you mentioned it slightly, the transition from, you know, being able to put an advertisement out and that transition to online, which a lot of people that had something that worked hold on to that. Instead of saying, hey, things are evolving, things are changing, I need to change. So
right. Yeah. No, those are really important points. And we do have to be open to evolve. And, you know, and sometimes it is challenging. And so it's just having that compassion for yourself and the faith. And also when you say, like, when things are going well and the well is just running over, it's always good to know that, you know, you want to plan ahead, because you might have some times where it's a little bit dry, and this way you don't have to worry, you don't have to panic, that you have that little cushion. But there has to be a sense of patience, which is not my strongest, but I've really learned how much patience pays off. It's amazing sometimes how things evolve and take time to come around again, but they do. I have found that they always do. And I have also found that even in the most horrible, difficult times, for example, we came to Florida in 1990 and then had amazing years from 90 to 98. Literally in that time, I saw probably maybe 50, 60,000 people, you know, at these seminars just in the first 8 years. And then we had a situation, we actually lost everything. So we lost, you know, we didn't lose our house, but we lost basically all the money that we had made, that we had, you know, been saving from that experience. And I remember I actually felt devastated. I really felt like someone had died. I didn't think I would get over it. And I remember it took me a while to even to face that it actually happened. Mm-hmm. But I remember so clearly that when it all of a sudden clicked, that was the reality of it. We had lost, you know, a large nest egg, and it wasn't going to come back. And I remember going into my backyard at the time, and we had 2 little kids. They were, I think, 3 and 5, around there. And I remember going in my backyard and just completely got down on my knees, put my head down, and just such a deep, deep surrender. And just really, really crying out for help, like asking for help. What am I supposed to do here? And it was amazing. And it's not like in that moment I got a voice, you know, it wasn't like, you know, Moses at the burning bush or whatever. But it's just amazing how right after that, my husband, who does acupuncture, and he came home and he said, you know, a lot of my patients are talking to me about Ann Arbor, Michigan. They're just telling me it's such a cool college town. Now I'm from New York. He's from Cape Cod. Never, and I didn't even know what's in the middle between New York and Los Angeles. Like I didn't think about, you know, what's in Michigan. It never even was on my radar. But all of a sudden he comes home and he starts saying this. And I was so open and raw. And I thought, so Ann Arbor, and I looked it up on the map, you know, the map, and I saw that it was about 45 minutes out of Detroit. And I thought, Detroit, isn't that a really unhealthy city where there's a lot of smokers, a lot of overweight people? And then I thought, well, why not check it out? This is what's amazing. So we had the 4 of us Thanksgiving's on Thursday. It was Friday night before Thanksgiving. And I just called it was like at midnight. I called the airlines and I tried to get 4 freaking flyer tickets to Michigan. And I got them. And we had to leave like the next morning at 8:00. So we did. So we fly into Michigan, and I called a good friend who lives in Toledo, which was right there. She said, yeah, come stay. And we went to Michigan, and Monday morning, I just cold called hospitals. And I said, I've got this seminar business in Florida. Do you think you might be interested here? I called one of the huge hospitals, and they had many, many different hospitals within a system. And this was a decision maker. She said, I'll give you 20 minutes. I went there. And actually, my husband had driven with the girls. They were sitting in the car. I went in. 2 hours later, I came out, and she had booked me in April for 4 of their big hospitals in the Detroit area. And so we came back. We ended up buying a second home in Michigan. And within a year, had basically made back everything we had lost, because Michigan turned into even a bigger market than Florida. And the best part was all the people that quit smoking and lost weight, because of it. So it really was just a win-win-win. But so to answer your question, though, it had to do with having that faith, because things had gone horribly wrong.
Well, and I love that you share that part of your journey, because it really shows the vulnerability in that a lot of people might see someone like you, and we have this from our students all the time, that they might see our success now and might think, well, it's easy for you to say, because you've always had the success, or it's been easy for you. But it's just a reality that, even in your darkest moments, you were still open to what that next chapter is, the possibility, and willing to do that, what some people would think is crazy, to be able to just to say, well, we'll jump on a plane and go over there and see what happens. And I'll call a hospital and go over there and put faith in myself, and really not only faith in myself, faith that everything has a purpose and that it work itself out.
And that doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
Another thing that if you go into entrepreneurship expecting to have this like perfectly polished business plan and know everything that you're ever going to do like 10 years in advance, and it's just going to unfold according to plan, unless you're part of some giant corporation, it doesn't work that way when you're an independent entrepreneur. And that's why we focus on these independent people, is it's a completely different ballgame than a big business. When it's just you or just a really small group of people, you have to be able to go with the flow and take the bounce. When you fall down, you bounce back up and you learn what you learn. And even in those excruciating times where you don't see a way out, it's recognizing that you have it within yourself to find a new path. And so that's such a wonderful story, and we appreciate you being willing to share your truth and what really happened.
And for me, it's also that reminder that things can shift in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
The phrase that I always tell myself in my darkest moments is like, just keep blinking in a blink of an eye. For example, for us, we were actually at the hospital the last time for a little bit over a week, and I was seeing the beach, the island from the mainland, from the hospital. And I kept telling my wife, in a blink of an eye, we're going to be over there. And at that point, we had sold all our furniture. We sold everything because we were so upside down. And a year later, we were living there, and our life had quantum leap in a way we would have never imagined.
Yes, we actually live in the condos we could see from the hospital room across the water.
So I think it's just that reminder that you're giving individuals, is to remember that, it's not about giving up, it's about maintaining that faith that things can change, and they can change rather rapidly. You just got to continue to have that faith and take that next step.
And you didn't label it as failure. Because that's what happens so often, is they say, oh, I failed, it must mean I'm a failure. And so can you remember like anything that, like, what did you tell yourself in those moments when you might have felt like, geez, like, what did I do? Like, what were you telling yourself, your self-talk, to be able to see past it and be willing to know that there were still opportunities?
Yeah, I think the important thing really is for me to always stay connected to what my purpose is. What's my passion? So sometimes I think, especially the ego gets caught up on things like, okay, the money, or, the kids or where are we going to live or all these details. And those things are all important. But I think what's the most important thing is staying connected to my own passion of what am I here to give? What am I here to share? What's my purpose? We're only here for a limited time. What's really, the driving force in my life, who I am and why I'm here and what I'm here to share. And I feel like one of the greatest gifts we can give to people is through our own experience, what we're able to, to transmit to people and to share with them. So, for example, with the hypnosis that I've been sharing with people for decades now, to me, it's so empowering. And I just see, that we all need this. We all need to be able to change the story, change the movie, change the direction, and shift our own energies and our own vibration, even whether it's so that we're eating healthier or so that we have the courage to go out and do the work we're supposed to do in the world or that we really want to do in the world. So knowing that, it's what I keep wanting to offer that to people. So, because it is so important to always stay in touch with the fact that we are constantly growing. I love the example that science will say that all our cells are changing and that in 90 days we're practically a new creation. That's so exciting. And it's the same, most of our thoughts and the things that we might feel bad about with ourselves, they're just habits. They're just habits. And when you realize, oh, it's just a habit, it's not who I am. Fear is not who I am. It's just an energy. It's just a habit. Then we can release it and step more into an identity, which is a lot deeper and a lot more connected to our authentic truth.
So one question I do have, and thank you for sharing, did you ever have that moment where it became real? Because obviously you're going through passion, you're going through purpose. And did you ever have a moment, whether it was you were about to do a seminar or you're about to do an interview or something like that, where it just became real and you said, wow, look how my life has transformed. Look at the people's lives that I'm touching in this process. Something that I would have never imagined.
Well, one of the most amazing moments for me was because I work with a lot of people privately over the phone or Skype, or sometimes people even fly down to Sarasota in Florida and work with me for a few days. And I also sell my at-home programs. And one day I'm working at my computer and in flies in an email of the most amazing before and after pictures. And I had never met the woman before. And she said, I've been using your at-home system and it's worked. I've lost 120 pounds. And I give it all the credit to your gastric bypass hypnosis at-home program. And so, and right about that time, I was in touch with the doctor show, and they heard about the story and they wanted to air the story. So that was one of my most exciting peak moments. So they flew me out to California. They flew Kathy, who was from Dallas, out to California. We met for the first time. And when I was sitting there, they put me in the audience, and I was watching when Kathy came on the stage, and they showed, her whole story, which she had filmed the day before, and I hadn't seen it up until that moment. And I was just absolutely amazed and so grateful that, through my own journey, I was able to pass along this work, and she was able to take that in and make such a dramatic change in her own life. And then by going on the show, we were able to inspire, thousands or even millions of people who saw the story.
That's awesome. It gives me chills.
Amazing, yes.
That's so, well, and it's like, I can imagine in that moment, it's almost like, it'd all be worth it, even just for this, like just to really be able to see it unfold, and that because it's not about the fact that it's you, it's that you're putting this possibility out there that people can latch onto. And because it wasn't you that did it, she did it to herself.
Right.
Like, that's the ultimate form of self-empowerment, is to know that we have the power within us to be able to change. And you gave her that.
Yeah, exactly. That's the key, though, is really reminding all of us that we have so much power, even in our day-to-day life, that the words we say to other people, there really is hypnosis. People take those words in, and it affects them in one way or another.
It's so powerful. So on that note, at a practical level, for entrepreneurs, how could you take some of what you teach and like, what would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned? It could be either from your experience in business or just from, what you understand about the mind, like that makes you successful in your business, that you'd be able to tell someone. Like, I like thinking of it like going back to yourself like 10, 15 years ago. What would be that one tool or process or way of thinking that you wish you could have told yourself back then, or tell a young entrepreneur or someone who's looking to understand what they can do to be successful? So what's that nugget that you would want to share?
Yeah, that's great. Well, I actually think looking back on, being younger, I almost feel, even though maybe I wouldn't have articulated it, but it was this feeling that, I love Einstein, of course, has so many wonderful quotes, but one of my favorite is the universe, I might not be quoting it exactly, but is it friendly? Is the universe friendly? And that's like the bottom line question. And I love that because I really feel that when I was young, despite all the challenges, I always felt that the universe was friendly. And I feel like that energy. So it's not just saying it in your mind, the universe is friendly, because I don't think I ever said it in my mind. So it's not just repeating the affirmation. That's why people say affirmations don't work. It's not just about repeating it in this little box in your head. It's about embodying the affirmation. So it's just a feeling, a knowing that the universe is friendly. And I think when you go out, whether it's in New York City or wherever you are, and you really believe the universe is friendly, then doors are going to open for you. And I don't know if it's the same for everyone in their life, but I think sometimes we go through stages where life knocks us down and knocks us down and knocks us down. And so suddenly we may realize, I'm no longer living as if the universe were friendly, because that belief has shifted. And that's, I feel like, where the work or the hypnosis or whatever language you want to use, the prayer, really comes in. It's like, how can I get back to that? And I think that's why we're so drawn to young children a lot of times, and the puppies, and just that innocence that the universe is friendly. Because when we feel that, not just a belief, but really feel it, then we're going to be able to really put ourselves out there and not be as self-conscious. Because as you said, it's not me, it's not your ego. It's really that we're all part of this bigger, wonderful, beautiful spirit. And what are we bringing forth? And now the world is so polarized. Well, this country is so polarized. So again, through something difficult, something beautiful can come, which is realizing, oh my gosh, if that person out there has so much power, why don't I? I do. And so using that in a good way. And that's the great thing about how the world has evolved now to the social media and the way that we can reach out to people with our own power, our own love, and putting that out and realizing that we are really making a difference. We're not just a victim. We're not just, we're not invisible. We have an energy. So I think the thing I would tell my younger self, 15 years younger, but I think that self even knew it, but it's realizing that sometimes it seems so much like life is random. Like I was just standing there and he started screaming at me. Sometimes it really feels that way. But a lot of times it's really like, okay, that might even be how it actually was in the physical world. Like we're not even denying it. But okay, so where's your power to shift the energy? How can you shift the energy within yourself? So either that person will stop yelling, either they'll walk away, or maybe they'll go buy you flowers. Like how do you don't even know what's going to happen. But it's not about blaming yourself. It's realizing, what can I shift in here? So it's really accessing that greater strength and that greater wisdom. What can I shift in here that can somehow shift the situation so that it feels better, bottom line. So it feels better. So,
and I love that. So do you do that consciously, or at this point, does it become unconscious where you have a situation like that? And do you consciously make the decision? Let me reflect on that situation. And so I can view it from a different perspective, or at this point, because you've done it so much, does it just come natural?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think it's both. So I think it's always that conscious, but then I feel like we get this amazing grace where sometimes like I'll notice, I'll think, wow, like even with food, that's a perfect example because, and I say this, but because so many people who do come to me, that's an area that I really focused on. And it's so sad to me to see people really struggling, with the same foods. But I think, my God, 30 years ago, I would never have thought that I could prefer a salad to a slice of pizza. And so it really does feel like grace now that someone could come in and come into the room with a bunch of fried chicken or something that maybe I would have thought smelled and looked so good. And now it wouldn't even faze me, like wouldn't even look even slightly tempting. So I feel like it's always a combination where you put that intention out and you do work on shifting your own conscious mind, like consciously doing that hypnosis or self-hypnosis to change your thinking. But then I think some people worry that it's always going to be that kind of hard work, but it isn't, because it goes into your subconscious, and then more and more you just naturally find yourself responding in a new way. You're not as emotionally reactive to people and things. And that, I feel, is really the grace that comes in when you set the intention to sort of live your best life and be your better self.
Well, it's like you said, it's a habit, and it's retraining the habit. And ultimately, in the end, you end up reprogramming yourself.
Right.
So your natural inclinations change, which I've experienced. I like to joke that my like emotional set point was always just like slightly south of neutral. And you hear a lot that emotional set points can't be changed, but I didn't believe it at all. And over a couple years, I definitely shifted. And even though, like, at a psychological level, I was always an optimist, like I didn't always feel like an optimist. But now it's just so easy for me to naturally feel at ease and happy. But it took reprogramming. And so, like, it's funny because we do it in a different way, but we love the same thing you do, is teaching people the power of the minds, and that we do have the ability to change. And I think you're right on about the fact that everything you said really is about, you need to do the work that needs to be done and have a good attitude about it, being able to know that the universe is here for you. Like, actually, one of my favorite quotes is Eckhart Tolle. He says something about how the universe will give you whatever experiences are like the best for the evolution of your consciousness. So it's like sometimes you need that kick in the pants. Sometimes you need that person yelling at you for no reason, because you need to be shown kind of what's going on within yourself. Because I love your story more than anything, that last one you were telling, because it's really about personal responsibility. And saying, what is it that is within my power to do? Because you might not be able to change everything else, but if you can look at it from, okay, well, everything I need, I can get access to. And also everything that's happening is what I need. And so it's for my benefit. Like you said, it's a friendly universe. None of it's here to try to knock us down. It's here to try to teach us something and lift us up.
And one of the things that I love is that, obviously within this time that we spent together and you're sharing your stories, that it comes through that your main focus has always been contribution.
Yes.
And it's really been your driving force.
Yes.
Even in the hardest time, it's been, how can I make a difference in the life of other people? And also, it comes out clear that you also come from a place of gratitude. Mm-hmm. That even in the hardest times, that you are willing to be open and grateful for the smaller things that life provides you.
Yes.
And for the impact that you're making on other people, truly being grateful that you're seeing what you've created. And with that said, is that you've worked in so many exciting things, you've done so many exciting things and transformed so many lives. And I really would like to know more about what you're doing today. What does that look like today?
Yeah, well, I'm very excited. My new website just came out. It's always been easywillpower.com. But now what I'm really wanting to do, because again, when in the hospitals, I worked in groups, and then that sort of, and like you said, times change, and it was no longer, going to an auditorium and putting it in the newspaper and the people coming out. And so I started working more one-on-one with people, which is very, very gratifying. And it's wonderful to help one person at a time. But I really always in my heart loved the groups. And about a year ago, I started an online group program, 21 Days to Permanent Weight Loss. And I was doing it about 3 times a year. And the results were just incredible. And I loved that power and energy of the group. And we did the whole thing online. And it's still a program I continue to offer a couple of times a year. But through that program, then I thought, because at the end, people wanted to continue to work together. So I started an inner circle. And it really was only just for that group of people that had graduated the 21 days. So we had a very small, intimate inner circle, and I would do live hypnosis and coaching sessions. And again, that's the beauty and wonderful thing about the internet. We would do it like that online. And so now, for the first time, I'm opening this inner circle to anybody who wants to work with me. And it's such a great value because we're all doing it together. And again, that's what I loved about the seminars, that it was always a great value for people. They didn't have to, the expense of coming and doing things one-on-one. So I'm very excited about the inner circle, and people are loving it. And it has a whole inner circle library with recipes and webinars and all kinds of wonderful bonuses. And then the live calls with me where I have topics every month: weight loss hypnosis, or stress and weight loss, or how to become a fat burner versus a sugar burner. So we'll have topics each month that we work with and are able to make progress in these areas.
So people can access that through your site.
Yes, easywillpower.com. Yeah.
And it sounds great because it sounds like one of the things that you're doing is that you're constantly looking at how can you provide more value to people, whether through information, through that support system. Because one of the things that we found is that people want that. People want to be able to constantly have that support system, have the extra tools and knowledge. And obviously with your years of experience, you probably can do something every day and share different tools and insights that you've learned in your journey that can really transform people's lives. So,
and then also as an entrepreneur, it's also a great example of like you're able to repurpose some of what you've already done. So it's like things that you might have recorded a number of years ago, or information that you've been sitting on that maybe wasn't in a digital format before. Like it gives you incentive to put it out there and be able to make it accessible. And that's also, that's something that we've done over time, is taken all of our material over years and years of, like you doing a lot of in-person workshops and programs and training. And then actually when Joeel got sick is when it really pushed us to start making everything virtual, because we had no other option at that point. But it's been a blessing because now we have everything on video and on paper somehow. And that's one of the things that we teach a lot about is how to make that knowledge and information and experience we have and make it concrete. And so this group program that you have is the perfect way to share all of the, the wisdom and the material that you have through a larger number of people. And we always felt the same way about groups. It's like one-on-one is powerful and intimate, but you can reach more people and make more of a difference in their lives in less time when you do as a group. And so just at a practical aspect, that it is really the best. And it's our favorite method too, is to reach the masses, because every person you can touch can then share what they learn with other people in their lives.
Yeah. And it's a support system.
Right.
It's that community that you build through that process.
Exactly. A wonderful support system. And then also I love that it's self-paced. People, in a seminar, okay, it's Wednesday at 7. You've got to be there. When you're doing this course online, you can really do it at your own pace, which is really, really nice.
Yeah. Well, and I highly encourage anyone listening just to check out your site, check out what you're doing. Like I said, we've known you for about a decade now, and we've seen some of the wonderful things that you are doing and have done. And just to the point that you're all about contribution, so that people can expect that coming to you, that what they're going to receive is someone that genuinely wants them to have a different life, a different reality, and live a healthy life. You've known how that's impacted you. And just like for myself, you mentioned the fried chicken. And for me, when I got sick, it was like, I used to eat chicken wings maybe 3 times a week, if not more, buffalo wings. And I used to love them. And I said, oh, I can't really eat that anymore. But once I tried them again, I was like, well, I don't really like this that much. I kind of like my salads now, and I like the healthier side of life. So it's helping people create that shift in their life and knowing that it's possible. So,
and actually, I just wanted to make a side note here. I've always loved the name of your business, Easy Willpower. And it's actually something we've talked about before, is because willpower isn't easy, but that's the whole point of your business, is that there are tools that you can use and ways of thinking that you can learn that make it so that you don't have to depend on your willpower. And that's really what it's about.
Exactly. Right. We go beyond willpower.
Right. So you're not waiting in that moment when you're in that moment of temptation and then needing to overcome those urges. It's just you're preparing yourself in advance to not either not be in that situation or to slowly learn over time how to not be bothered by the situation. And so it's like, don't rely on willpower, because if you're in that moment, like at that point, it's too late. And I love that you just capture that even in the name of your company. It's such a powerful concept.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's so true. When you tap into the power of the subconscious mind, you don't really need willpower, because there's something much bigger, much more powerful that's then informing you or motivating you. That's
awesome. And so we do have a final question. It's actually two parts. And so it's, on one hand, what's your biggest goal, the biggest thing that you're wanting to accomplish for yourself? Because everyone listening ultimately is an entrepreneur. And we know that even though contribution is the bigger reason why we do things, there's also things we're doing because we want to live a certain life or a lifestyle, or reach a certain milestone or make a change. And then on the other side of that, what is the biggest contribution that you would want to make in the world? Like what do you see as your legacy?
Wow, these are great questions. I have to say, I feel so blessed that the lifestyle I've had over these last few decades has been amazing. And even, we raised two daughters, and now they're in college, and just, we traveled a lot with them. And it's just been, that's all the wonderful blessings of being an entrepreneur. There was never any set schedule. We could be anywhere, go anywhere, do whatever we wanted to do. So I just feel so grateful for that lifestyle. And I would just want to continue that, going forward. I love that freedom and that flexibility. So when you mentioned earlier, like doing those tedious things, keep your eye on the freedom that you get to. I think about some people, I remember, let's say when I was, 21, and I took a job, as a secretary or something. And I remember, even if it's just a couple months, every day going to a cubicle, having to type up things that were meaningless. Like the whole thing was meaningless. It was not attached to anything that made any sense. Mm-hmm. And I think some people, their whole life, like they're only working to get the paycheck. There is no connection between what they're doing necessarily and an end product or an end goal. And if there is, sometimes it's not anything they feel proud about, or bringing more Cheetos into the world or something or whatever. So I think it's just such a wonderful thing to aspire to be able to know that whatever you're doing, it's leading to something better. And when it's leading to something better for other people, I think naturally it's just leading to something better for yourself. And in my case, it is just a lifestyle. Absolutely love the lifestyle, love where I live and, everything I'm doing. So I'm just really happy. And again, I don't have some big thing that I have to feel like I still have to achieve. I feel like everything is just going to continue to evolve, and I'm just going to keep going as I'm going. So recently, all kinds of new things are coming in for me, and I feel like I'm just going to keep following them and seeing where they go.
That's perfect. Perfect. And yes, you're right that it's keep your eye on the freedom. Like, I think I'm going to have to steal that phrase from you. Like, that's really good.
And for us, it's the same thing. It's like contribution is our driving force, but also secondary would be that freedom to be able to spend time with our family, to be able to do what we want, where we want, to travel, to be able to spend hours learning and growing, to be able to spend this hour talking to you and knowing more about your journey and sharing your journey. Those are all things that we value, because you can make money and all that other stuff, but you can't take back the time of your own journey to follow your own purpose and passion and be able to contribute the way that you have. So,
and that's exactly why, this podcast is focused on indiepreneurs, which we call self-employed freedom junkies. Because really, people who are entrepreneurs, like, it's not just the time itself, but it's how we spend our time. That is a really big driving force. Mm-hmm. And heart-centered entrepreneurs are really our core market. And we're all in this because we want to make an impact. And we also want to have that experience of living an authentic life, not within the limiting boundaries of a traditional career. And so it's so fun to talk about and be working with other people who they get that. It's like we're like a unique breed of people that we want so much to help people, but we also want this freedom, and those two things are what, make us willing to do those things that need to be done that might not be fun, but it all is worth it in the end.
So, and I do want to go back to that second question, just to touch on it a little bit more, which is, what is the biggest difference that you want to make in the lives that you serve? What is that legacy that you want to leave behind?
Yeah, I think if it had to come down to one word, it would be empowerment. I think so often it's easy to feel powerless in the world. And it's so important to realize that, yes, things are sometimes very difficult in the physical world. And yet, if we can keep having the courage to remember to go back inside and back inside and back inside and connect to our deeper heart and soul and spirit, and to know that we're absolutely not alone and that we have this spiritual support. And that is such a key. I just had an amazing experience this week, something that never happened to me before, because I would always sort of feel so grateful. I would always say, oh, I never have physical pain, never have physical pain. And then all of a sudden I woke up a couple of days ago and my back was completely out. To just lift like a glass felt like a bowl. I couldn't even lift anything. It was so humbling to realize, wow, I could. And it was amazing to just kind of get through that. And I have some, so I just started to, actually, I guess I didn't tell you guys, but I'm coming out with a new product line that I'm really excited about. And I sort of fell into it with, actually I have glaucoma, and so I started to take some CBD for glaucoma and had amazing results. I decided to, and I didn't even know anything about it, but I started researching it, and it's an amazing component, and but now it's only now just become legal, and there's been a lot of misinformation out there about it. So I really wanted to start to clear that up, and I've been learning a lot about it. So I'm coming up with my own product line on it, Easy Herb Power. So Easy Willpower and Easy Herb Power. Mm-hmm. And so I started to put this cream on, just on my back, and it's amazingly powerful. And between that and I feel like the prayer and kind of looking at what was going on in my life, but it was amazing because people had said with something like that, it can go on and on. The next day it was a little bit sore, and within 2 days, completely gone. And I just felt like, wow, that is such a miracle to realize that, the past doesn't equal the future. What you're going through in this moment, it doesn't have to define you. And to keep, again, looking beyond that and saying, okay, what can I do? What can I do? And with the CBD, I didn't even have to take any pain medicine or anything, which I thought was good. I think that really helped me to be able to get through. And it just was gone. So I feel like that one day of the pain really helped me again to connect into that gratitude, but also realizing, again, empowerment. Like, what can I do that could really make the most difference here for myself? And if you're willing to do that for yourself, then what can I do for others that'll make the most difference? So you're not stuck, whether it's physical pain, emotional pain, mental anguish. We don't have to be stuck there. It doesn't have to define us. It's just an energy. Yeah.
Well, and I love the new product that you're coming out with, because obviously, especially like for someone like me that's had spinal issues, I definitely want to get more information about it.
Good.
So one question I do have about it, it's have you already launched a product, or is that in the works right now? And do you have a launch date for that product? And how can people find more information? Obviously, we can send them the site too, a link to the site. Is that going to be part of your main site as well?
Well, I will have I already do have some of the Easy Herb Power products already on easywillpower.com. Mm-hmm. And then the new Easy Herb Power site will be launched by February 15th. So, but the products actually now, like the pain cream that I have and the tinctures are available now. I came up with an amazing product that I'm so excited about. It's called CBD Super Cider. And what I did, I had come up with Slender Cider a few years ago, which is 11 therapeutic herbs and a base of organic apple cider vinegar to help alkalize and cleanse and really cut the cravings for the carbs and the sweets. And again, just like we've been talking about this whole interview, I never one day said, oh, I want to create a product and bring it to market. It just sort of happened. I created it in my own kitchen and gave it to people to try. People loved it. And then I spent a year searching for the right manufacturer who would not just throw powders, but really fresh brew the herbs and make everything's organic and fresh. And, no chemicals, no fillers, no artificial sweeteners. It's just a pure therapeutic concentrate. So my clients love that product. That's Slender Cider. So then when I came upon the CBD, I wanted to incorporate that. And I saw that so much of the CBD out there, even that's being sold in health food stores, it's amazing. They'll go on and on about how great it is. And you say, but how many milligrams are actually in that bottle? And someone's like, what? I said, how many, and sometimes it's like 35 milligrams, which when you study it, it's nothing. Like one serving could be 35 milligrams. So the CBD I'm coming out with is really high potency. So CBD Super Cider has 400 milligrams in an 8-ounce bottle. And I even have tinctures of 1,500 milligrams. And I'm putting together packages, so I'm actually having the best prices on the internet. Because it is expensive when it's real, organic, USA grown CBD. It is sometimes, you have to be careful what you get, because I've learned a lot. And
sure.
Yeah, a lot of the seeds are imported from, let's say, Europe, or they may have originated in China. And the only issue with that is that the plant is very, very porous and absorbent. And so if it's not grown in absolute organic conditions, and let's say there's a lot of toxins in the air or pollutants, well, the plant is going to absorb that. It's going to be in the seeds. So it could have an effect that you absolutely wouldn't want. So I, again, searched for CBD that I could find that's actually organically grown in Colorado, and it's amazing quality. So it's very exciting. And so I'm going to have actually a line of products: CBD Super Cider, CBD Superfood Energy Blend, which is a powder, and all of them, as I said, organic, pure, with only the highest quality ingredients, all third-party tested. So you can see I'm very excited about it. So to answer your question, yeah, for your spine, the pain cream, I actually already have that. That's what I put on when my back went out, 1,000 milligrams. And I just kept putting it on. I put it on about only a tiny bit at a time, maybe 6 times that day. And I did the next day too, just to be safe. I was doing the tincture too, because what it does is it eliminates the inflammation. So you want to take it internally and externally, so it works together. And I couldn't believe it. One day I said, oh, so I knew that even from this horrible thing, a blessing had come, because I really saw the power of my own product that I'm putting out there.
Well, and I definitely take a look at it, because I'm the type that I don't even like to take Advil or anything.
Exactly. I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, I'm all about trying to do as much as I can naturally.
Yes.
And I grew up, my mom had a health food store growing up. So I grew up in that environment. So even taking Advil, for me, my body's like, no, because I'm not used to it, because I'm always, I've grown up the natural route. So I definitely will take a look at it.
Well, and actually, and what's great about this interview is that this video is going to be evergreen. So most of the people who watch it, I'm sure all of her products are already out. And if you're one of the first ones to come on and see this, just know that you can access it through her main website, and just keep tabs on all the new stuff that she ends up doing, because she's always up to something.
Yeah. Well, that's what we love, that you always are trying to find ways to contribute, to make a difference in people's lives. So with that said, I know we probably ran a little bit over the time that we had asked you to give us. So we do truly value this time that you've given us, and truly value what you've done and the people's lives that you've touched. Because again, at our core is we want to promote and support people that are genuinely trying to make a difference in people's lives, and also be an inspiration to other people to truly understand that you can follow your passion, you can follow your purpose. And as long as you're willing to take that next step, even though if you don't know where that tunnel, you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but just trust that that light is there. And that if you keep taking the next step, before you know it, your life will be transformed. So again, thank you. We're truly honored and blessed that you would take this time with us and truly inspire those people that we've been fortunate enough to follow our work and know that they can also make a difference the way they want to.
Absolutely. And for everyone watching this, definitely recommend checking out Rena's information, even if you don't need to lose weight or quit smoking. She has so much knowledge and information out there. Like I said, she's been writing for us for years and years. So we have many articles available that she's written, and it applies to everybody in every situation. So everything that she teaches about the subconscious mind and self-hypnosis. It doesn't matter what your goals are in your life, what challenges you have. You can apply what she teaches to what you want to do, because it's really universal. And I know I've always enjoyed reading her material and watching her videos. And there's a lot of videos even from further back in her past that are still circling around out there. It's really fun to see how she's evolved. So I highly recommend checking her out and learning more about what she does, especially because you never know, what new thing is gonna catapult her to the next level. So it's just fun to watch. And again, really, truly, thank you for sharing of yourself with our audience.
Oh, thank you both so much, Natalie and Joeel. It's just been such a pleasure being here today with you. Thank you. You're both really an amazing couple, a great inspiration.
Thank you.
We're all on the same team.
Yep. To find ways to contribute.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, that's it for now. And hopefully we'll have you back on someday in the future when we hear about the next new thing that you're coming out with.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Great.
All right.
Care.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, fellow Freedom Junkies, for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And if you want to help us grow, please rate and share this podcast. You can also become a member of Freedom Nation. Visit freedomorbustpodcast.com and sign up to receive access to exclusive content and take the 21-day happiness challenge. As you know, we believe that entrepreneurship is the ultimate form of empowerment, which is why we created the Side Hustle Business Startup course for anyone looking to create their own income and take back their power. We offer an exclusive discount for our podcast listeners. Find out more at freedomorbustpodcast.com.